Good morning, everyone. Calling our meeting to order at 8:03 a.m. Since Mr. Lightfoot's going to have to leave, we're going to jump to number 11. Number 11, and then we'll go back and talk about the consent. Number 11 is final reading of ordinance 1170 and the petition for contraction. We're supposed to have some updated numbers for us.
Yes.
Some clarification.
Amanda and I talked about this earlier this week, and apparently this property owner was told there had to be a loop put in the water line and stuff like that. So when they first came to the city and asked for a water sewer availability form, our staff fills that out as water and sewer available directly in front of the property without having to do any modifications. The answer to that is no, it's not directly available in front of the property. However, typically, the developer or property owner then submits what they want to do. We model it and determine what upgrades has to be done. This has not been done to this parcel. They said that they were told there wasn't adequate fire flow. I'm not sure where that came from. According to our model, we have 1,500 to 2,000 gallons a minute in this area, which is 1,000 gallons a minute is what we require. So there is the option to get water and sewer to this parcel, but just like everything else, they're going to have to install the upgrades. The county doesn't have it readily available either. So if they contract from the city and then build something in the county, they're still going to have to upgrade and tie into the county system. I emailed the county Monday or Tuesday to ask them what their options were if you all did approve this, what the county would allow for them to tie into. They have not responded yet, but their utilities are further away than our utilities are.
Would he have to do a loop, like he said?
So it depends on what he's putting there and what we model to show how he would get adequate pressure. But even if he did have to put a loop in, it's 650 feet of 6-inch water main. So it's nothing way out of the ordinary to make this happen. So,
You'd have to do the same if you was in the county or not?
correct.
So we'd have to do a loop in the county also?
So all the loop does is prevent a dead end from inadequate flow. So the loop is
Like
coming.
they got in Ohio.
Correct. It's like one of our areas that has, lower fire flows. If you can tie the two roads in together, it goes from, 800 gallons a minute to 1,700 gallons a minute. It just increases that pressure.
Does the developer know this?
So again, he hasn't approached us as a Public Works Utilities Department to present anything and know what they would have to do. When somebody fills out a water and sewer availability request, my staff just fills it out as it's available directly in front of the property or not. Like we had to do for Jake's Landing when it had to be upgraded, for example. The developer submitted what they want, we model it, and then we give them a list of upgrades. The Bedford Park that you all recently approved, where they had to, increase the water flow. They had to run the sewer in the opposite direction. That's what the modeling is for.
Yeah, so to answer your question also, to piggyback off of that, the developer did call me and chat with me, and I'd already talked to Chris, of course, and I said, we don't know where you got that information from about the loop because you have not done anything with public utilities to find out that information. And he said he was told by another engineer that had built something or was going to build something a while back. So he has not directly contacted
Yeah,
me.
we have not submitted anything in our model to show what improvements, if any, are needed to make whatever he wants to develop on this parcel happen.
So at this point,
Hey, Chris and Vicky and everybody, whether he annexes or de-annexes, wouldn't they still be in our utility service area?
Correct.
oh, so you have to connect to our.
So it'll just cost them 25% more to do everything.
Closer.
Right, we are closer than the
But
county.
he's thinking the hookup is gonna be more expensive in Lynn Haven than the county. When I
So
talked to him.
The county has a water line on the opposite road that he would have to come all the way through, way further than ours. But he's still in our service area, and they only have a 2-inch sewer force main.
Okay, so my two questions. If he did have to hook up to the county, would he still have to do a closed loop?
Whatever they recommend, I can't
So
speak
it
for
may
them.
not be a closed loop.
Right.
So I guess that leads to my second question is
is it that much more to do a closed loop or an open loop as opposed to do a loop or not loop?
So it would cost more money, yes, because you have to run a little more pipe to go back in to tie
So
in.
it's not that.
No, it's,
But he's gonna pay more money, as Kevin just said, because he's gonna have to pay a 25% up.
right, if the county,
For his monthly payment.
right, if he contracts, if you all approve for him to contract, and then he still has to tie into us, if the county denies him water and sewer services, he still has to tie into us. He still has to go at our recommendations of upsizing, and then we still charge him 25% more monthly.
Can the county give us a verbal whether they would deny it or not?
I'm waiting on that,
Okay.
and I don't know if I'll have that by Tuesday. But again, I mean, can't speak for you all or speak for Amanda, but we typically wouldn't be in this boat or be at this point if they had submitted something and we said we couldn't support it, then they would come to you all asking for this, not just because they're going off hypothetical situations.
So what's the staff recommendation?
I would prefer if the attorney tell us whether he thinks that the contraction would be justified,
Amy said she had
seeing as how he's saying that water and sewer isn't available, and it is available. So if he was able to annex in, which he did do with that ordinance, although it was as a larger parcel, can we de-annex because he met the criteria?
And I talked to Amy yesterday, and the way it's situated, she thinks that if he wanted to de-annex, it would qualify. I mean, obviously we'd have to vote to do it. But what I think the bigger picture is, I don't know if he knows that he's still, even if he becomes unincorporated Bay County, great, but he's still in our service area, and it's going to cost him more money. It's not going to solve this problem. It's like he knows that.
Thank you, Kevin.
But yes, I do think it meets the qualifications if we were to check those boxes and say, yeah, if you want to de-annex, we just have to vote and do it.
Thank you. And I actually think there's more to it because every time someone asks him why, he always says there's a number of things. Right. So, but at this point, unless he brings one of the other things to us, we have to make our decision on what was brought to us, which is the contraction.
Right.
I guess we're trying to figure out our role as commissioners when we look at this, I think, is there justification for him to de-annex? You guys agree with that? I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what our role is in that.
Yeah, I think that's all that's before you. That's all that's before you on Tuesday. Is he made a de-annexation application?
Yep.
Does it meet the legal requirements to de-annex? We think it does. Whether it's to his detriment or not, I guess that's on him.
So I guess in some sense from what Kevin is saying is that the justification doesn't matter. Whether it's a justified reason or not, as long as he meets the checkbox.
Yeah, that's statutory requirements, right?
Because the other thing I worry about is we know we got these areas in Lynn Haven where they're just county and surrounded by Lynn Haven. And this just kind of exacerbates that problem.
Yeah, and remember we did that interlocal boundary agreement that would help us with annexations and help us fill enclaves. So part of that boundary agreement was, we're providing the water, the sewer, the police, the fire. We're the service provider in that whole area.
Yeah, but I talked to him after the meeting. His land use is commercial, non-compliant, commercial, and he can't do anything else because everything around him is the low-density residential.
His land use is actually mostly conservation with a little bit of upland, low-density residential. That upland portion is not big enough to put a commercial venture on. He is saying that, he's non-conforming because he has a commercial office on there, like a mobile, he's got a unit on there, and it has been on there for a long, long time. And so we gave him at some point a non-conforming status. When something was changed, he became, probably the land use, he became non-conforming, has been able to operate out of that as non-conforming. He had someone come to the city a year or two ago wanting to put another commercial venture on there, and that person was told no, because when something is non-conforming, it can remain so long as it's not vacant for more than 6 months or is damaged by more than 50%. They can maintain it, they can look after it, they cannot expand. So that person was told no. So he actually doesn't have any commercial on there. The county is to the north, but the strip that's to the north is also residential. There's commercial across the street, but his land use is conservation and low density residential.
So is the primary concern for him becoming conforming? Would that just be more of a land use change, or to be?
I feel like what he wants is, because he's had people come in the past that, and he says there's been people interested in buying it. I
Right.
feel he wants to have a commercial or a mixed use land use on there so that he can sell it and someone can do a commercial business. But then you're going to have the problem of someone buying a piece of property with a commercial land use, thinking they can do something on there, and then they're going to come to us and we're going to say, hey, there's not enough upland there for your parking requirements, your stormwater requirements, and then they're going to be mad because they bought a piece of property and can't do what they want with it, potentially. None of that has happened. That's just the kind of thing that has happened in the past.
It will happen again.
So are we, I know, like, whenever we get development orders and that, there's property rights. And as long as they're abiding by all local, state, and federal laws, we have to approve it. Does this fall in that same thing that we have to approve this, or can we say no on this?
Kevin, did you hear that?
Well, I mean, it's one of those, it's kind of the same answer. I mean, obviously, you guys can vote however you want, but we would look at it, you look at the statute, does he meet the requirements of the statute? And, the answer is yes. All we could say is, that would be our recommendation. If that's what he wants and he meets the statute, so that's the recommendation,
I guess one thing we could consider, has he met with staff since our last meeting? Has he met with anyone? I know he's talked to city manager.
No, you talked to me. I know I
He,
haven't-
Talking to
he
you.
called me and told me that he had spoken to a couple of commissioners after the last meeting.
Who called me?
And after talking to them, he was looking into the possibility of withdrawing his annexation request and submitting a future land use map amendment. If he does that, then obviously we'll bring that to you. But he hasn't done that yet. If he had, then I would be telling you he withdrew it and he's submitting a future land use map amendment.
Yeah, that's what I would think this would be heading. If he knows, that, look, you can de-annex, but you're still in our service area, you're going to hook up to Lynn Haven utilities, and you're going to get tagged with the 25% surcharge and everything, I would think any reasonable person that knows that would withdraw the application, but we haven't spoken to him.
So I guess one option is that this could be tabled. We could possibly table the second reading until
It's up to him to withdraw, right?
the first reading in November. But in between that time, try to get some communication with him for clarification, and then just put this for the next agenda. So that's one option if we want to ensure that he understands all the options that he has without us just having to say yes or no.
Amanda, is this second reading on Tuesday?
Yes, sir, yes.
So it's been advertised. Yeah. So I think what you would do is you would, open the public hearing for the second reading and then just continue it until the next meeting, date certain. So you don't have to re-advertise if you instead of tabling it, go ahead and open the hearing and then continue the hearing.
Yeah.
So you can save money on advertising. Well, it all goes to the county website anyway, but.
Yeah, and then Chris, I recommend that Chris meets with him to discuss the whole utility
Right.
situation.
However y'all figure that out.
We will.
Yeah.
Yeah, with us,
Yeah,
we'll meet with him.
We just send whatever staff needs, so that way he can have clarification on what,
After the public hearing.
yeah.
Yes, we'll do that.
However y'all do that. But yeah, thank you all for the follow-up and the update and the clarification on that. And thank you, Kevin, for your input on that as well. All right, let's bounce back to our consent agenda. Or let me say, of course, we know on Tuesday, is everybody okay with the idea of pushing it to staff, giving it another meeting so that there can be clarification? At least, it seems like there's a lot of hearsay on his end versus factual on what can be done, will be done, et cetera. All right, consent agenda, approval of minutes for 10/8/24. Again, I always encourage you to look through the minutes to see if there's anything in there that needs to be updated or changed. And then if you have any of those, this would be a time, or just let CJ know. Number 9 is the approval of the 1911 Plat Residential Paint Program application. And number 10 is discussion of possible approval for the city to enter a lease agreement with RDK Associates, $85 per month for an automated side loader garbage truck. All right, any questions on these?
I do. How much does a garbage truck cost?
350,000. It was close.
Actually, the last one was over 375,000.
And it doesn't come with a full tank of gas either.
It takes about a year to get them.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah.
So have
I was
we-
just curious how much it cost.
So have we have one on order, or is this
We'll
more
get this one.
financially beneficial?
This
to
is
these?
beneficial to us in several ways. If we buy one, it goes down, we gotta go get fixed. It's usually a couple of $1,000s every time. If we lease one, we call them, they bring us another truck. It doesn't disrupt our service, and we continue to move on until they bring it back to us. Then when we're finished with it, we just, get another new one. This is actually working, we're seeing that leasing is working out to be financially smart for us as a city as well.
Has the service been good on the one that we've leased?
Yes.
Yes, very good. And this is in the budget.
Because you think about it, by the time you spend the money for the year, and then, I don't even know how long a garbage truck normally lasts for, but, and then the maintenance on it, I know there's a lot of things that can go wrong.
Lots of maintenance.
I think the Financial Review Board looked at this, didn't they, as far as whether it's beneficial? Only other question I had, it says 24-month lease, but when I looked in the agenda packet, it said 36 months.
I think that's probably one of those is a mistake, and we can get that clarified for you.
So is it 24 or 36?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I see right here on 23.
Yeah.
It says,
Do you know, Bobby?
I believe it's 36.
36, yeah.
So the agenda probably just need to be updated.
Okay, okay.
So it's not 204,000 then? I saw that somewhere.
Oh,
That would be 2 years.
well, I think what happens is from what I'm seeing on their letter, it says 36, but on the actual agreement, it says 24. Like page 23 says 36 in their email.
Actually, it says 24 here, which they've already done the math, which would equal
Yeah, so I think
204
Yeah, for 2 years.
for 2 years.
Yeah.
But we'll clarify that for you.
in the
Yep.
letter they're saying 36.
Yeah,
So I think that's the,
and then on the
We
lease,
already
there's
have one
Yeah.
truck.
Yeah,
under them,
yeah.
It's like an addition.
yes.
How many trucks do we have total? Garbage? 4. So 2 will be leased if we,
Yes.
also, how much did we allocate in the budget? I don't remember for this.
Off the top of my head, $8,500 a month for 12 months.
But we did the budget before we,
No, this is already pre-planned within the budget in terms of capital. They turn in all of their capital expenses, and so we put that within their budget.
so it's already in the budget for $102,000, because that's what 1 year would be, right?
Well, $8,500 a
Yeah.
month. So we do budget year to year.
because I think you all budgeted for, was it 3 trucks, like 2 pickups and then 1 garbage truck? Is that what was?
Two trash trucks.
Yeah, 2 trash trucks and then
And leasing the garbage.
And then leasing it, yeah, so that was in the budget. I actually got pictures of those. I had a citizen who wanted pictures of what our new trucks would look like. So I got Chris to send me pictures of the pickups, the trash trucks and the side load, so.
Do you have any idea how long a trash truck normally lasts before we get it replaced?
Garbage trucks only last about 5 years.
That comes out about the right
They're
time.
actually the hardest working trucks in the city.
Oh, yeah.
All day and so many moving parts.
So about 5 years, you said?
Yes, for garbage. Trash truck, you can probably get about 8 years.
You say trash trucks.
The nothing,
Knuckle.
Oh, the one we get a manual throw it in?
no.
Like for solid waste, yard debris.
Young,
The one that comes to the neighborhood on
The
Tuesday.
claw.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions on the consent agenda? Being quick question.
Yes. Oh, he did it.
I know this is our first one of the year, number 9, or first one of the fiscal year. Do you recall how many paint program applications we did last year?
I'd have to look.
Okay.
How many? I'm
Less
sorry.
than 10.
Okay.
We're doing more with expanded class.
I think we have $8,000 in our budget for, I think it's 8,000. You know, we offer the same incentive for the CRA budget and,
Right.
the 1911 plat, so.
Okay. Got it. This seems like it's becoming successful. Seems like more people as they're becoming aware of making applications.
I think that there's a lot of word to mouth. Neighbors notice the improvement, and then they start talking, and then I'm getting another application. So yeah, I would agree.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Anything else on the consent agenda? All right. Number 12, discussion only of development order for order amendment. This will be for Grease Pro, 3119 East Highway. Any questions about this? Pages 48 through 60.
Is this just for information?
Yes, because you already
Already
voted on
voted.
it. You already approved it, but you had certain things you wanted them to do.
Yeah.
They have done those things, so this is just coming back to you so you can see what they've done and that it's been reviewed to make sure that their stormwater facilities are adequate and that kind of thing.
Is the neighborhood opposed to them moving the retention pond?
They're opposed to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, they're opposed to
We're
everything.
not really voting on anything.
no, it's just information.
So I guess my question would be to Kevin, if you guys are not voting on it, or really, or you're gonna have any discussion on it, do we need it on here?
So really, they just flip flop the site of the pond, right? Put the pond closer to harbor.
They took out that building.
Yes, so there were things they had to do per the commission, per the development order, which was remove that future office building so that they could apply to FDOT for ingress and egress and not just an ingress that they had before. So they've done that, but they also, because they had a bit more space, tried to be good neighbors and moved the building closer to the eastern property line. They own the property on the other side of that property line, and they repositioned the stormwater pond.
Yeah. Well,
I know we're not voting on it, but I think because of the public
high profile.
that comes with it, that we would just basically, I guess instead of maybe saying discussion, we could maybe say update. Or,
Oh, okay, that's a
you know,
bit
or,
over.
you know,
Okay.
update from the planning committee on this.
And just so you know, we did put a sign out on the property yesterday because some of the calls that we had, accused us of doing things without letting anybody know. And I was asked a few weeks ago if we would put a sign out on the property when we knew it was coming to the commission. We knew yesterday that it was coming to the commission. So we immediately went out and put a sign on the property.
Okay. Thank you.
But Amanda, you're not asking for any vote or an actual amendment. I mean, they just,
No.
they still comply with the development order. They just relocated the
Yes.
thing. Okay.
Yeah. So I just think it's an update on.
It'd be more of an update. Yeah.
Okay, we'll change that word.
All right, number 13, or before number 12, any questions for Amanda about number 12? All right, number 13, any additional input that you have on the environment chapter?
And I think Amy already sent red lines in to staff. Vicky, is that right?
Yes, I think she sent some
Okay.
in.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you have something, Commissioner Vinegar?
Well, in the copy that I got, it still stated Washington County.
They haven't made any changes.
Yeah, we haven't made any
Oh,
changes yet.
okay.
Yeah. So it'll be a
So
final.
I reread it for nothing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this is, every time.
Judy, this used to be Washington County years ago, remember?
It did. I did not know that. Considering
Oh, yeah.
my grandfather was in the state legislature and made the motion for Bay County to become Bay County. But I didn't know that. Thanks, Kevin.
I know.
So no, it's,
I don't think this ordinance is that old, but yeah. So.
so it's going to be the same chapter until we update it and just see if there's, additional input on that, or if citizens has contacted anyone with any ideas or additional input on it. All right. Awesome. I did meet with Moyd Highlands residents last night. Guess we had about 35 people come out. So filled up the chambers to talk about the speed bumps that are in Moyd Highlands. And they had a couple of recommendations. We had a very good discussion on that. And so there'll be some recommendations or some solutions that they would like for us to propose to the Traffic Safety Committee. Yes, their question would be, in regards to those solutions, how would they, because they're not an HOA. So I guess the question is, because they're not an HOA, they wanted to know, we can talk about this more later, but just getting it out there so you can all staff can think about it, is what would the staff consider the voice of Moyd Highlands? So is it Moyd Highlands doing a Facebook survey and a certain percentage responding to that? Is it something that needs to be done door to door? And so many responses from the door to door, so that the city would know that it's a majority or consensus of a response from Moyd Highlands versus 3 or 4 citizens or 15 or 20 citizens.
I think one of the things is when it comes to the safety of the public, we look at the data. The data is what we looked at. And so that's what makes the decision here. We listen to a lot of voices from many neighborhoods, but when we put the machine out there and we observe it, it doesn't come back as this needs that. So we don't do it. It's just a lot of the data that goes on from there.
So I think one of the questions was regarding the actual, and I understand that's not answering our question as to, or the community's question as to, with any response or any question that they have. For example, if there is, hey, we're going to do this or that, what is or you want to hear, how would you know it's the majority of the response? Of the community?
If it was something else besides the speed bump, surely we would hear from those residents, directly. We, not particularly Facebook, because that's still sometimes inaccurate, but we would hear from those residents in terms of them sending us emails, or whatever that may be. But that's normally how we would gauge that.
So you prefer a door-to-door survey then versus?
Normally we don't.
How many,
I'm not saying that you do the door-to-door survey.
Oh, okay.
how many
Would you want for us
residents are
internally?
in?
Oh, yeah, the neighborhood could absolutely do what they
Or
want.
I guess what we're asking is right now.
450, 500 houses.
So right now the city. So here's a concern, is that the city moved on. You moved on the data, but in response to 3 or 4 citizens or 10 citizens. So then if the city proposes solutions to say, hey, these are some options or some solutions on continuing to mitigate or manage speed in Moyd Highlands, how many people would you all want to hear from in that regards to the response? Or do you just want to just say, hey, we don't care what mode house is?
No, we definitely care, but we can't ignore the data either. And that's part of, I mean, for folks that are about, how we make decision, surely we can't just throw that data aside and not look at the fact that there was someone speeding up to 57, 58 miles per hour. And, that's part of it. When we have an HOA, so HOAs are very, very different. We can take those HOAs, the presidents and all of the folks that are on the HOA that are speaking for that community. Then we do something a little bit different here, like the HOA that called us that's next door, that says, now we're getting your speeding problems because people are dodging the speed bump and coming down our way. Well, when we did that data there were a few, but not, that data didn't really say that there's a lot of speeders that's going through the next neighborhood there. And we called the HOA to let them know that, and they were very thankful. But we still did put someone out there to watch the traffic. And so that's
So
how
I
we
guess
do it.
right, I think we understand that. I think, again, the question is, because we're not a HOA, then how does Maud Highlands, at any instance, whether it's this issue or any issue, how do non-HOA neighborhoods convey the majority or the voice of the community? Is it through a survey on their Facebook group and say, hey, we've had this many responses? Is it through a door-to-door?
You normally get like a petition, and then somebody goes around the neighborhood and has everybody sign the petition.
Okay.
So that's what we've seen, like in Callaway. It's you get a petition, and it's 10 pages long, and all these people signed up, and they make the request. So normally it's like that. So somebody in that neighborhood without an HOA has to go door to door and ask people to sign a petition. They turn that in.
So that's all the community is asking is what is the valid process that the city's going to look at and say, hey, yeah, we can consider this valid for Maud Highlands.
Yeah, I just didn't want to tell that community what to do. I mean, if somebody brings us, surely, like you ask us to do for Splash Pad, how many people used it? So we went out and we did that survey there.
No, you're not going to do the survey.
Yeah, I know, but I
They're gonna do
understand that.
But they want to know
I understand that.
what's some more value. What will be the official?
See, and I can't, that's a blanket, that's for that community, but it may not
Right.
be for this community. That's what I'm saying. So I can't tell you that. I just can't.
And I would say what the more common practice would be is your traditional petition.
That's
Have a lined piece of paper and have everybody who wants to sign it, as opposed to like a Facebook poll or something like that they do internally. There's no right or wrong way to do it, but that's more of a traditional way that we've seen in other communities.
All right, sounds great.
What's the data? Can I add something?
The data says that there's a serious speeding problem. Yes.
I don't know if anybody's thought about this, but I just want to bring it up. When you're looking for solutions for speeders, if you're considering speed bumps, just remember that can slow down your first responders. It can also be hard on vehicles like fire trucks, ambulances, garbage trucks, are big, heavy, expensive vehicles. So I just ask everybody, think about that when you're looking for solutions. Thank you.
Yep.
What about speed humps? How's the speed humps affect emergency vehicles?
Not as bad as a speed bump, but I mean, they'll slow us down and they can jar a truck pretty bad. Speed bumps are harder on the vehicles than speed humps, but they'll all affect us a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think if you do something, I think it would be a hump, not a bump. Like a speed bump you see in a parking lot, it would be a speed hump
And
if you did anything.
correct. One of the reasons you have the bumps there is because you can actually take them up. Once that hump goes down, I mean, that's construction. So
Yeah, you're right, but we ran into this, I think, in Callaway, and those bumps. Even there's all sorts of issues with those because even though I don't think they really meet unless it's like I said, unless it's like in a parking lot or something, it doesn't really meet like your DOT and DHSMB standards. Like the ideal thing to slow speeding would be the hump, but I agree, you're laying some asphalt down and it's about $3,000 or $4,000 to do one.
As opposed to $700, yeah.
Well, but they make speed humps that you can lay down similar to speed bumps.
Yeah, we do have some additional ones that are like not so invasive.
Yeah.
We could surely look at those, or we can take them out altogether. If the commission directs us to take them out, we will take them out.
I don't think the consensus of the group was not to mitigate speeding. Of course, Commissioner Ward was there. I don't think the group doesn't want the city to do something to enforce speeding. I think the group wants speeding enforced,
Right.
Whether that's through law enforcement,
Temporary home.
So I think because of the data, no one's denying that speeding is an issue.
Right.
So, the data presented. Now, is there some argument with the data? Sure, but it's very minimal.
There's definitely an issue there. I don't think anybody's arguing that.
Yeah.
But I've seen those speed humps that they lay down. I've seen them at gates on different bases, and they have them there for quite a while. And they get a lot of traffic, so they work.
So yeah, but I'll follow up with more from the community. Any other discussions or concerns from the commission?
I have been approached by a citizen to discuss with the commission about the possibility of allowing alcohol in public places for private events only. I'll be, through Vicky, sending you the information. Don't want to discuss it. I just want you to think about it for discussion later on. Maybe talk with citizens and see how they feel about it. It would be very limited, only for private events.
And so you say private events in public places, what does that mean?
You would have to apply to, like, rent the garden club with the stipulations.
So would it be limited to the garden club or?
No,
Entire city, any city park or city building.
even a street, like if you were going to close the street and somebody had applied to use it for, I don't know, Oktoberfest or something like that.
So like if you rent the garden club and you have a small wedding reception, you're not allowed to bring beer or wine in there?
That is correct.
Shoot, I broke the law about 20 years ago.
Well, the rules might have been different back then.
It was because it wasn't owned by us. I think it was owned by some other folks. So, yeah.
I've been getting some phone calls about some code enforcement issues, and normally when I get that, first thing I tell them is contact code enforcement. Feedback I've been getting is they've been contacting them, and that's when I tell them to send city manager an email. And I'm just saying this so that we're kind of all on the same page, and this is the way I kind of feel about it when I talk to people. I was like, when you contact code enforcement, my recommendation, you don't have to do this, is don't call them, email them. And the reason I say that is if you email them, you have a record, right?
Got it.
Because, some people will sit there and say, yeah, I contacted them multiple times, but you don't have any proof of that.
Right.
So that's what I tell them, like, call code enforcement, or not call, email code enforcement. That way you get a record of it. And if you don't get anywhere, then next step, contact city manager get involved. I told them, feel free to CC us if you want. You want to CC the commission in that. But I don't know if you guys have been getting any phone calls or emails,
Yeah.
but
What's the complaint? It's
there's
not following through, or they don't see a result, or
yes.
what?
So there's a few houses that basically nothing's been done to them. The grass is overgrown. I think they're vacant. Inoperable vehicle, RV, someone living in their RV across the street. That's the only ones I can think of off the top of my head.
I think those are some of the ones, and I totally agree with Commissioner Ward. Definitely email, it's codeenforcement@cityoflynnhaven.com. That also gives us record of who is making the complaint. And so that's part of the problem, is people trying to do it anonymously. You can't do it anonymous. You can't, you have to give your name. And they probably don't leave their name when they're making these complaints. So they may, and I don't know, I'm not sure if those are addressed because they don't have a complainant and we can't take anonymous complaints. So I love the idea and would encourage that idea of doing that, or they can call me and I'm going to ask their name and turn that in.
Well, I mean, you do have to allow anonymous complaints, but like I think what your point you're getting at, it's hard to follow up on those or know that they're being satisfied because you have nobody to talk to. But
Kevin, I thought
fine.
the statute just changed that you could not take any more.
Did it just change it again? I know it changed not too long ago to say it could be. Okay, all right, I got you. Well, that's even better then. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Usually, sometimes I have that conversation when they say something, and I'd be like, yeah, you can't be anonymous when you do a complaint. And I explain that whole thing. And I explain to them, it's not us, it's the state that made that rule. So
I had an issue with a citizen, and it was with their neighbor, and Brian from Code Enforcement had already, it was just a question of getting the neighbors on the same page, and it was, it was handled. It was, and system's happy, and the neighbor realized what had to be done, and they were getting it fixed. So.
yeah.
It's as easy as a simple communication, but
That's true.
code enforcement, as soon as you put them on the task, they usually are right there, man. So,
Like I always say, if you don't have it in writing,
yeah,
it never happened.
writing's good. Well, I had a text trail and then city manager.
He does, he texts me as well.
So
Is it privileged information on the person that made the complaint, or is it public?
It's public.
it's
Yeah, I think that would all be public.
Okay.
I had someone a resident reached out to me the other day. I didn't have the answer. I didn't know what the answer was. But when Hurricane Helene came through, I know we had people that were on the clock, had to work extra hours and that. Did that cost the city any money by doing that? Did it?
Yeah, everyone that works, that's considered a essential worker, according to the policy you guys passed, that everyone that's working that day gets time and a half.
Right.
Yeah.
How hard would it be to find out how much extra it costs the city by?
I think he can pull that information for you very, very quickly. And
where does that money come from?
I can run that report in about 2 minutes. The last time I looked at it, we were in the $90,000 range.
Okay.
$70,000 for salaries and $20,000 for supplies and expendable equipment. Sand, sandbags, lime, that kind of stuff. And then we spent, I think it was close to $3,000 for food for the staff that was here. But the primary expense was the salaries, about $70,000. And it's unbudgeted, so it's considered an emergency, which makes perfect sense. And it will come out of general fund eventually. I have set up a separate fund, and our shorthand for it is 105. You heard us talk about 101 for Hurricane Michael. Now this will be 105. And this is the very first time that the city's been able to track the salary expenses associated with disasters. So in the future, God forbid, if we have another large event, we will much more readily be able to apply for reimbursement for those salary costs.
You say apply for reimbursement from state?
From FEMA.
Oh, we get reimbursed for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as we have it documented, there's a specific federal form that has to be filled out, and we have to tell them hours and what the person was doing and what equipment they were using and where they were at. It's rather complex.
So we're
right.
gonna do that.
I got you on the timer, 2 minutes.
Do you want it today, or you
No,
want
I'm
me
just
to bring
kidding.
it to you on Tuesday?
No, Tuesday's fine.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
just
thank you.
kidding.
And just remember, once it is declared by you all in a state of emergency, then that's when that happens, and not all staff work that day. Only essential
Right.
employees work.
Okay. Last thing I had, I know I brought this up a couple of years ago, when we had the Charter Review Committee, and I didn't really push it too much because I felt like Charter Review Committee did a good job on it, and I didn't really want to taint what they're trying to do. But I brought up about the city clerk. Right now, the way I understand it, city clerk basically falls under the city manager. And so normally, most cities, they either have it set up where the city clerk falls under the city manager or it falls under the city commission. Me personally, I feel it should fall under the city commission. I think it helps helps with
What
transparency.
should fall on the city commission?
What's that?
What?
City clerk.
But they changed the charter and removed the charter committee didn't they?
Well, it says city manager / clerk in the charter, right?
They
Yeah,
removed the
it just
clerk.
says city manager.
Yeah. Our charter, it's more of a combined. Look, Jamie's right. We don't have a city clerk as a charter officer,
Right.
so that would have to be a. Yeah, I mean, it would have to be another charter amendment because it'd be a charter officer. That's a direct report, but.
I thought the charter committee removed the word clerk.
They did, and it's just,
I think they did.
they did, and it's just known that the city manager is also the
Right.
clerk. You're
Right.
exactly right.
Right. That's what I'm getting at. So that's what I'm getting at is I personally think,
That's a charter review question and that's supposed to come up in 5 years.
they can
fifth
bring it
year.
up, but we can bring it up also. There's nothing that's,
Then it has to go through referendum again.
it does. The voters would have to vote.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, because you'd be to create that direct report to the commission. That would be deemed a charter officer, like the city manager or city attorney. Now, you do not have to wait for a charter review committee or anything. I mean, obviously, the commission can say, "Hey, we want to propose this and create the position and create the ballot question and put it on the next election and do it." You don't have to wait, but it would be a charter officer, so that would have to get put into the charter.
So I kind of want to just kind of open it up for discussion and see what you guys thought about that.
So what are the advantages of having?
So with them, so this is what I did when I first originally looked at it. Originally, I tried to call as many cities as I could that kind of was similar to Lynn Haven, especially like one big thing was population size. And when I originally started calling all these city clerks, I typically, and I found out not long after I started doing it, and I had to call some of them back, is that whatever system they were under, they were like, yeah, it's a good system, whatever the one they pick, and that's the only one that they know. And eventually I called enough where I found, I think it was about a half a dozen of them that have done both. They've been under the city manager or administrator, and they've been under the city commission, and I asked them the pros and cons, which one do you think is a better option that you've experienced with? And unanimously, all 6 of them said being under the city commission, because now they're a separate entity from the city since they're under the city commission. And they wouldn't, and basically, city clerk duties are like the agendas, the minutes, public record requests, proclamations that the mayor reads, a lot of it's clerical duty type thing. And the reason for that is, when, lost my train of thought there. When you have it separate like that, having that separate, I'll just say it. Michael White. Remember we had Michael White, right? We had a lot of problems. And I feel, and this is one of the feedbacks I get from the 6 that I talked to, is by them falling under the city commission, they feel they're more apt to speak out on something if they don't see something. And I'm not accusing the city of doing anything illegal or unethical. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm trying to look in the future, but I'm trying to learn from the past of what happened when we had Michael White as the city manager. And they'd be more apt to say something if they're under the city commission. Now, if you had a city manager like Michael White, how apt would they be able to come out and say something about that? And they're in a good position to do that because of all the information that flows to them, all the contracts, all the agreements, the development orders, everything. So they get to see a lot of that stuff, and they're in a good position if they do see something to bring it up.
So,
And I'm just trying to protect the city in the future because Miss Gaynor won't be here forever, you know. I just think that's, and I did contact, I didn't know that, but there's like a Florida City Clerk Association.
there is.
And I
That I'm part of.
called and I talked to the executive director about it, and I explained to her I was doing research on this, and I asked her if there was any studies or data or statistics on any of this stuff. And there was no studies or anything, but she did have some stats that there was one where they asked the question, who does a city clerk report to in your city? If city manager, if they report to city manager, administrator, it's about 54% in municipalities. If they fall under city council or commission, it's about 41%. About 7% fall under mayor, and then 2% are other, whatever that might be. So, it's not uncommon to do this, but I just think it'd be good for our city to go that direction.
Yeah, I'm surprised by those stats. I would think it would be more common to have it as a charter officer. That's what we see around here, but
Yeah,
that's interesting. That's 54 or 41.
I know Callaway, they have a city clerk falls under the commission. Panama City has a city clerk that falls under the commission. I'm not sure about Panama City Beach, if that one is or not.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon. But I like having it as a separate entity because they do all the public records requests too. So all the public record requests go to the city clerk, and being a separate entity, I think is important.
So what would I do with those employees that already have that job? They're kind of, because you have a contracts and grants manager. Then you have CJ that does, and it does say that I can designate someone to do those clerk duties, which is all of the stuff that she does right now. She types 95 words per minute. I don't know if anybody else can probably do that. Development orders are actually under planning, if you will. So,
I mean, development orders would still go through planning, but the paperwork would still go through the clerk.
So, I don't know
That's the
how,
way I understand it.
I don't know how that,
I guess is it?
Yeah, you wouldn't honestly change a whole lot. I mean, like just take for example CJ, and the commission would they would be in charge of hiring her, and they would appoint her as the city clerk.
Right.
All the other employees there still fall under it gets a little bit tricky, but it normally works. All the other employees still fall under the city manager, but you kind of like, you know, they'll almost be like a department head for like chain of command purposes, but their boss is the city clerk. But you would still be in charge of all of their employees. You would sort of assign those to the clerk's department, and they would have people underneath them.
so I do know in our policy, it says that if there were ever something that was going on and this was not in place when Michael was here, that any employee would go to the attorney to report that to, if there was something nefarious going on with the city manager. That was not in place when Mr. White was here, and now it is in place. So that's where they would go, but that's.
And like I said, I'm not accusing the city of anything. I'm not accusing them of doing anything illegal or unethical. I
remember a couple of years ago, I do remember the discussion. I think we discussed it probably several meetings, or we discussed it more than for one time. I guess one of the concerns is that what type of tension would that create by not having the clerk under the city manager, with that person being basically the head of the employees, what type of work environment would that create, and what type of tension would that create, where essentially I don't have to do what you say, because that's what it.
Because nobody will be able to manage that person while you all are not here. And we know that your jobs are part-time. You have other things that you have to do. So who manages that person when you're not or not?
That's why they like it so much.
This is true.
Right. So,
This is
so I'm just wondering, what does that create? I mean,
That means that person, just like the city manager, had 5 bosses, just like the city manager has.
I'm saying,
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, you kind of just have to get lucky with your staff. I mean, Callaway went through 4 city clerks in about a year, so
so that's sort of like,
and some of it got pretty ugly. But there's also been some that it was smooth for many years. So I mean, that's you just can't really answer that. It just depends on who you pick.
What I would suggest if you're going down this road, there is a difference in clerks and clerk functions. What I'm hearing is a ministerial function. So when you go and talk to a city clerk, you need to make clear what is the function, how many positions are under that office or that position, and what is their actual responsibilities. It varies throughout the state, large and wide in my initial look. And that way, then, if you go forward, we could look at an organizational structure. Again, I see it as a duplication of efforts at this point, a duplication that will cost the city money by doing a duplication, meaning if there's an office, suddenly the clerk needs an assistant who needs a record keeper and someone who's responsible in public records, where now we share the load. But I think that's an important research component, is to look at the actual functions and functionality of what you're looking at.
How much does it cost to have something put on the ballot?
I know it does. It costs something. I'll have to get that answer for you, but it does cost
I
something.
think it depends whether it's a special, I mean, if it's total special.
Depends
election,
on when the
obviously
election,
it's
yeah.
more. But if you put it in line with the actual election, I want to say it's like 3,000 or 4,000.
Well, not only that, we'd have to cover that, it would be a special election, so all of the contract volunteers, they call them volunteers, that run the election would be a cost to the city.
Well, if you lined it up with the municipal election, you could line up with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And usually what's the salary range of a clerk?
It varies from city to city and size of the city, and again, it's the functionality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Callaway's around 60 or so, and then if they get you can get certified as a certified municipal clerk, and there's a little bit of a bump, but I'm sure the beach is probably higher, and Pamela City is probably higher. I would say 60 to 80.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about what I found when I researched it. I was going to say 70, but 60
Yeah.
sounds about right.
That would truly be an expense for the city.
so
Big
I guess to Jennifer's point, though, we wouldn't just be hiring a clerk, we would be hiring an entire staff to go along with the clerk, if depending on what duties we're asking the clerk to do.
Again, it depends on the functionality of that office and what the expectation is. Right now, we spread that work across existing staff. Therefore, then there would have to be an analysis based on what is the work and the duties. Is that appropriate for one, or are there multiple persons, and how do they report? I can't answer specifically without having more detailed information to go research for you.
Because it almost, and I will just be very honest with you, it would almost eliminate a staff to put a city clerk there, and that
It'll
that
be a
is something
transition.
you would have to do, and
So, Commissioner, if you could help me understand again the big picture of what this clerk position would do.
So when I looked online at like other cities, what they do, it's mainly clerical stuff. So like, for instance, maintaining an official record of the city, prepare agenda minutes to the commission, board, and committees, administer the oath of office, prepare the proclamations for the mayor, facilitate municipal elections by working with the supervisor election and preparing the city issues for ballot. They'd be the custodian of public records for all departments of the city and fulfill any public record requests they have. Coordinate appointment to advisory boards and committees, post public notices as required by law, and authenticate all official legislative actions such as ordinances, resolutions, and contracts.
So in part of those duties that he just read off are my duties as well.
Right.
And so,
So I would think if this is something that we want to, and thank you, I would think if this is something that we want to have more discussion about and deeply consider, I think first if there's a consensus with us, not necessarily today, but I would ask the Charter Review Committee to reconvene because you're going to need some community support for doing the referendum. I would ask them to reconvene to look back at it because what we're describing is basically what the city, that those are the duties of the city manager. So we're, I guess, basically saying splitting
Right.
these duties, I guess, creating another position outside of the city manager that reports to the commission, which would then, of course, go back and change the charter, which ideally would have been the time to do it when we had the Charter Review Committee. If we
And that
wanted
brought
to-
it,
the Charter Review Committee decided that they didn't think that a city clerk was necessary, but they did, and if you remember,
Yeah,
they did.
They definitely
decide-
discussed it several times.
They did.
Definitely discussed it.
And they didn't think that that was necessary, but they did think that at some point I needed to appoint assistant city manager, and that's what I did. That was absolutely, there was one person on there who talked about the clerk, but the majority of the charter reviews did not think that a city clerk was necessary.
Yeah. So that would be one thing I would say we would push it to them as well, and get some feedback from them also in that regard to look at. And
I just wanted to bring up discussion, see what the rest of you guys think.
Well, I'm gonna have to look into that,
Yeah, of course,
the pros and cons, okay? I think, okay.
of course.
anything else for discussion?
Yes, I have a couple of things.
Yes.
Stormwater. The commission probably needs to give us some direction in terms of what you're looking for stormwater to update the stormwater assessment.
Okay.
Because I don't want us to get right there at the end or near the end, and then we're trying to make changes. So we really need to be thinking about, in terms of stormwater, when we start meeting with Stantec, and we're going to start that within the next month. We're going to set up a meeting with them. Do we want to continue with impervious, or do we want to go the route of improvement value based off of the assessment, or do we want to look at something else? So that's an area we truly need to
I think we would
address.
probably need to have a workshop on it, a commission workshop, not necessarily a public workshop, but a commission workshop to really discuss it before we can provide definitive direction to the city or the staff on what we want to look at. So that's what I would suggest. Because I don't think a commission meeting or even a pre-commission workshop gives us enough time to really discuss all the different nuances and questions and variables that we've had previously, that we have now since it's been going. So I would say I think it's going to generate a lot of discussion. So I think we need a workshop to discuss that.
I think the citizens need to know how we spent the money. I mean, they've done a lot, they've done, for example, I'm just using this as an example. So many miles of cleaning out ditches and so many repairs of 8-inch pipes or, whatever, but the citizens need to know how we use the money and that there's still a lot
Lot to be
to
done.
do.
Yeah, and Chris
You
will
know,
do
that
that
we've done
update.
this. I think the citizens just need to be reminded that, it's a constant thing.
It is, you're absolutely right,
And
Commissioner.
it's
Van
really like you're never, ever done.
No, you're never done.
never be
He'll
done.
do that stormwater update, that's on there to do, so he'll do some stormwater updates for that, and he has done that for the past year, given those stormwater updates. That was, I think, directed by the commission for him to give updates. Done a really, really good job. And, just a lot of people, many residents are just not tuned in to it, but some are. So we try to get that word out, but he will do a stormwater update.
And maybe there's something in a paragraph that we could include in the newsletter or on the website is what we could do, because the only ones that are hearing the update, I'm not saying it's the responsibility of the city, but the only ones hearing the update are those that are tuning into the actual meeting itself.
Sure.
That's a good idea in the newsletter. Maybe you could highlight, various departments, what they're doing.
So,
We can do that.
so yeah, so you say we, in the next month, you're meeting with Stan Tech, so then we would need to have a workshop within the next couple of weeks then.
We're already meeting with Stan Tech. We're year 2 in this process of, is it a 4-year?
We're
No,
in,
we're in 3.
We're in year 3.
Yeah.
See, that was before my time.
Yeah.
yeah. We
Year
have to.
3,
Yeah, we're in year 3, but we're in year 2 of the 5-year plan. Yeah, we did 1 year, then we froze it the next year, and then we did like a 5-year plan. So year 3 of the assessment, year 2 of the 5-year plan.
So we got to get them direction early, and I know one of the things was with one commissioner, one or two commissioners, is that we not have this and seem like it's rushed. So I'm trying to start early
No, that's a good
to
idea.
get things on board for you
I
all.
think the other thing, because I remember we had discussed this before, if we put it on a utility bill, how much would you have to pay a year? And I'm trying to remember, it seems like it was like $350, $400 a year or something, if I remember right. So,
You're not hitting everybody.
right,
Property owners is a bigger net.
right. I think it'd be good to have that in our back pocket for when a resident asks about that. How much would it cost if we had to put it back on the utility bill? But that's the number I remember. It seems like it was about $350, $400 a year.
Yeah, I can't
Like
remember.
we spread it out over all the
Utility
residents,
owners.
all the utility owners, yeah. Because you're missing your vacant properties.
Right.
Some of your other.
Yeah, that's
Or just
right.
something as a house
Bigger net.
that nobody's living in it.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
that
So
kind
we
of
miss
stuff.
our vacant properties and all of those things, and that was one of the
Right.
reasons. You're exactly right.
Basic.
Because people ask me that sometimes, and I'm like,
yeah.
I don't remember the exact number, but it seemed like it was about
It did.
$350, $400 a year if we put it on the utility bill.
It'll just rain on mailboxes.
That's a good.
Correct. And I think it does work well for the assessment that one time, and people just get it out of the way, then we have the money there that we can start to use for all of these maintenance things that we need to do. Because remember, when someone moves out or they closes an account, then we don't get that money. Yeah. So that's going to be very big. But that was my big thing. It's just, we do need to look at this now.
Okay. Well, guess I'll follow up with you, see if we can maybe some different dates for a workshop.
We need to get Sam to explain his.
Yeah, and that was, I talked to Commissioner Peebles, and when he gets back,
Yeah.
we're going to meet again to explain his. And then we were going to, after he explained, we kind of know what he wants.
Yeah.
To see if that's something Stan Tech would take on and recommend, if that's something the commission would want to look at.
So maybe our pre-meeting, maybe our pre-meeting in November, maybe just, since at the time we're all convened or available, maybe just make that a workshop for stormwater. Just, just try to be prepared to sell it a bit longer. Since that's the time that we're already coming. Typically, that we come together on those Friday mornings. Is that good for everybody?
What's the date of that?
November 7th, I think.
November 7th? Okay.
Yeah, November 8th, I think.
November 8th, okay.
So we would plan on a longer meeting that day.
Bring a sandwich.
Yeah.
November 8th.
Bring lunch.
Yeah, so we'll plan to be here from, and we'll probably actually.
I'll be happy with just coffee.
So we'll probably just do maybe like a
I'm with you.
prepare from 9 to 12 that day, and not have a pre-commission meeting, and just prepare for that stormwater workshop.
So we don't have to come at 8?
Yes.
Yay.
No pre-commission. Yeah, just workshop that day.
Oh, so you're just gonna do 9 o'clock?
Right. Yeah, not scheduled for 9 to 12. Hopefully we do by 10.
We're not gonna go over the agenda. We only have one meeting that month.
Right.
So there's gonna be more on the agenda probably.
Yeah.
We'll just go over that now.
Okay, so we'll do a pre-meeting and a workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll go over the agenda.
Yeah, if we just schedule that now, that way we're.
Just wanna make sure we're letting
Yes,
everybody know that.
Yeah, that's
With
right.
coffee.
Yeah, just remember, it's Commissioner with the Coffee, coffee with the commissioners on Monday at 7 a.m. And you still need to, if you haven't judged, you.
What time?
Who chose 7 a.m.?
That's when people are either before work or
I'm
after.
kidding. I'm just teasing.
I'm gonna be in a bandage.
But if you can make it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.